everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Sarah Kermy. I'm the Executive Director of Sister District. So amazing to see so many of you from everywhere. We are going to get started in a minute or two. In the meantime, if you would please put your name and your pronouns and where you're zooming in from in the chat, we would love to know who's out there with us. We have a big group, and so we're just taking a moment here to get everyone in the room with us. We really appreciate you joining us on a Monday, Tuesday evening, Tuesday evening. Um, and depending on where you are, it might be earlier or later in the evening. So if you're just joining, if you can put your name and pronouns and where you're zooming in from in the chat, we're going to get started in just a minute or two. Thank you for joining us. I'm Sarah Kermy. I'm the Executive Director of Sister District. And I can see we have folks from all over the map. That's so exciting. Again, we're going to give it just one more minute. So if you're just getting in the room, if you can put your name and pronouns and where you're zooming in from in the chat, we'd love that. And I am Sarah Kermy, the Executive Director of Sister District. Yes, do we have a question? All right. It is 3 minutes past the hour, and we have an exciting packed agenda for you today. So we're going to go ahead and get started. If you are just joining, please put your name, your pronouns, and where you're zooming in from in the chat. Again, I'm Sarah Kermy. I'm the Executive Director of Sister District, and thank you for joining us for the very first mobilization call of 2025 with Sister District. We're so excited to have so many folks from all across the country zooming in. And we know we have a lot of new folks joining us tonight, which we're so excited about. So we really wanted to start off with a very quick poll from all of you to just tell us what brought you to this call tonight. What made you say that on a Tuesday evening you wanted to spend an hour with Sister District? So if you could fill out this very quick poll here, we would love to hear from you. All right, I can tell you all are stellar voters because we have an amazing participation rate of 85, over 85%. So keep voting. The polls are still open. Your vote will make a difference. Oh, I thought it was stopped for a minute. All right, I think we're getting up there. We're creeping up. We're at over 90% participation rate. I am seeing a couple that are really standing out of reasons why folks are joining tonight, which I'm really excited about. We've got getting guidance on the most impactful opposition efforts and learning about one or more concrete actions I can take now. And those are things we're going to talk about tonight. So I'm so excited that all of you joined to learn about Sister District and how you can engage with our network and get involved. So with that, we're going to go ahead and move forward here. We're going to go to our next slide and just give you a sense of the agenda for tonight. So we've got a welcome with me. So we're going to go over some slides here and learn a little bit more about Sister District and our organization. Then we're going to hear from Sean Werner, our our political and organizing director, who's going to talk about the state of the states and our 2025-2026 electoral strategy. Sean and I are going to talk together about our 10-year blueprint. And then Susan Farrell, our amazing head of organizing, is going to talk about how to take action with Sister District. So all of you who are wanting to learn about how to take action, that's coming. And then we've got one of our amazing team captains, Natalie Burdick, who's going to talk about her work as a volunteer and team captain and what that looks like. And then, of course, we'll have a recap of next steps and some opportunity for Q&A. So we're not going to spend too much time on this because I think we all know, that we're here in part because we are seeing every day the devastating and horrific attacks the Republican trifecta is waging at the national level on every issue that we care about. But we at Sister District also know that these attacks make it all the more important that we build a strong front line at the state level to protect our rights and our most vulnerable communities. And as Senator Slotkin noted recently, we are here because we know we must stay engaged and organized, and that some of the most successful movements in history started from the bottom up. So, of course, we here at Sister District have been here before. If you didn't know, this organization was founded during the resistance in the wake of 2016, and our results really are an example of what sustained investment and work in the states can look like over time. Go to the next slide. So, who is Sister District? We are a grassroots organization, and we work to win urgent elections that build Democratic majorities, strengthen progressive infrastructure, and create enduring power in state legislatures. And a very, very key way that we do that is with the power of our robust network of volunteer teams who support the candidates we've endorsed in key battleground states. And this support has come in the form of thousands of actions that have led to victories across the country. And we're thrilled that you're here tonight to build for the future and meet this moment. So just to give you a sense of the breadth of that work, in the last 8 years, Sister District has endorsed 202 races in 18 states, and we have won a whopping 146 of those races, which we're going to get to a little bit later, but that's a really amazing victory margin. And if you want to go to the next slide, and then, even last year, when clearly the headwinds at the top of the ticket were not working in our favor, we delivered a number of critical down ballot wins that has created a firewall in key states. In fact, as noted here on this slide, in 2016, Democrats controlled just 29 chambers, and now they control 40, which is tremendous progress. And then here on the next slide, you can see we've listed out some of our key victories in 2024. So breaking the GOP supermajority in the North Carolina House. That is huge. That helps sustain the governor's veto in North Carolina and stop really horrible bills from passing. You can also see breaking the Republican supermajority in the Wisconsin Senate. That was huge progress thanks to the passage of fair maps and a lot of hard work on the ground in Wisconsin. And of course, maintaining control of the Pennsylvania House and the Minnesota Senate. Both of those margins in those chambers are extremely thin. And so making sure we maintained those chambers last cycle was phenomenal. So, of course, one of the big reasons the co-founders of Sister District chose to focus on state legislative races is because these races have been so overlooked for so long. At Sister District, our staff and volunteers are able to bridge that gap and make sure voters know who is running to represent them and who reflects their values. And we also know that the return on investment in these races is absolutely astounding because we're not only investing in people who will make critical decisions at the state level, but also in leaders who will go on to run and serve in higher office. And we are delivering for these candidates. You can see here some astounding numbers. The 2024 fundraising, we have raised 1.4 million for money for our candidates at Sister District, and then 1.98 million total dials by Sister District volunteers into key state legislative races. That's nearly 62% of all dials made. And that fundraising number is also, it's an average of just under $55,000 for our top priority candidates, which I can say as a former campaign manager is absolutely astounding amount of money that's coming into these races. And of course, 150 plus, that's the number of fundraisers our sister district teams and affiliates hosted over time. So then here we've got our wins from 2024. I think it's great to see the breadth of these wins, particularly when people think about 2024 and think about, not so many wins. You can see here we have several, many all across the country. And I think it's also worth noting that many of these were extremely narrow margins where every dollar and dial made a difference. So we had Jody Haybush Sinykin in Wisconsin who won her race by just 1,788 votes. That was flipping a seat in the Wisconsin Senate that helped break the Republican supermajority. Dante Pittman won by 908 votes, flipping a seat in the North Carolina House and breaking that Republican supermajority. And then Woodson Bradley won by just 209 votes, holding a seat in the North Carolina Senate. So these are really slim margins where, again, where every dollar and dial that we're making makes a huge difference. And as you can see here, all of that adds up to an amazing 72% win rate and out of the history of the organization, which I think is all the more astounding when you think about the fact that these are very purple districts. They're 50-50. These are the seats that determine if we hold or flip a chamber. And so having a 72% win rate in these districts in particular is really amazing. Then you can see here, over time, we flipped 10 chambers. You can see we've got them all across the country here from the Washington Senate, Colorado Senate, Maine Senate, New Hampshire House, Virginia Senate, Michigan House, Michigan Senate, Pennsylvania House, and then again, most recently, the Virginia House, which I think you can see Virginia House is on here twice, because it's really a testament that, again, this is work in these states requires consistent investment over time to not only flip these chambers, but hold them. Next slide. And then this happens to be one of my favorite representations of our work because I think it really exemplifies the progress that we have made over the years. So on the left here, we've got a map of what state legislative control looked like at the partisan level in 2016. And then you've got the map that as it looks now. And I think sometimes cycle to cycle, we forget the overall progress that's been made. And we forget that places like Nevada and Michigan and Pennsylvania were under total Republican control at the legislative level. And now we have a big difference on the other side. And then places like Washington, Colorado, New Mexico, and even New York were split control and now Democratic control. And so all of that has added up to amazing policy victories over time. We've got repealing right to work, LGBTQ plus healthcare, abortion rights, minimum wage increases, clean energy, paid family leave, and policy reform, where not only are these chamber majorities passing these policies, but in fact, Sister District alumni are leading the charge. Oh. And then the last thing I really want to hit on, which I alluded to earlier, is that we are also building the candidate pipeline. And a great example of that is Emily Randall. She is someone who we helped win her state Senate seat by just 104 votes, another one of those really narrow chamber margins or seat margins. And in 2018, she went on to widen that by a slight bit. She won her re-election in the state Senate by 1,276 votes, and then went on to run for Congress and won her seat this past November by just over 57,000 votes. And with that, I'm passing it to Sean.
Thank you, Kermie. Thank you, and thank you everybody for being here tonight. I think that one of the most remarkable things is the juxtaposition of when Democrats have control of state legislatures and their priorities and when Republicans do. So as you can imagine, our Democratic state legislative majorities are working on things like making sure that we can not be forced to use our state funds to implement these draconian immigration policies, assuring that people have access to abortion care, making sure that as the federal cuts to the Department of Education are being implemented, that we are still able to run our schools at the local level, and really mitigating a federal impact, making sure that if the residents of a given state are being harmed by the federal government, can our state legislatures in Democratic trifectas help them? But let's juxtapose this to the Republicans. Just in the Michigan House, they recently regained control, and they were one of the first things that one of the Republicans did was petition to the U.S. Supreme Court to try to overturn my marriage and overturn Obergefell. The DOJ cuts that are deeply unpopular in the states, increasing tariffs, mass deportations. This juxtaposition could not be more clear. Go to the next slide. But we know that in midterm elections, that there is commonly a massive push and backlash against the party that's in the power. And so what we want to highlight today is actually all of the opportunities that exist over the next few years. Because if we take advantage of those opportunities, and you can probably on the top of your screen, instead of clicking Ash Hutchinson's screen, click over at the meeting, and you'll see that there are over 350 people that are joining this call all throughout the country. Scroll through the chat and see how many people are ready to take action. This map indicates where we are going in the 2025-2026 election cycle. Here at Sister District, we break our priorities into three different buckets. The first is making sure that we're able to hold all of our democratic power that we have built over the last 8 years. The second is to flip a chamber to make sure that we get gavels in the hands of people that share our values, the Democrats. And then a place where we can make inroads. This is a place where we continue to fight and make the case as we look forward to a 10-year plan to try to make the greatest impact that we possibly can prior to redistricting. You can go to the next slide. So the very first place will be no shock, the place that will have a statewide election and a place that Sister District knows so well. This is a place that Sister District started in 2017, and we have been engaged in every single cycle. So this year, you better believe that we're going to be going back into Virginia, where it's only the House of Delegates that will be up for election. However, there are 3 very important constitutional offices that are currently held by Republicans. Flipping those while holding the House will give us the Democratic trifecta that we need. You can go to the next slide. So this is exactly our top priority. Before we're able to take more power, we have to make sure that we're able to hold what we have currently. So that's why we're going to be focusing on holding our slim 1-seat majority in the Virginia House. We defended it earlier this year collectively in a special election, and we're thrilled to be engaging in Virginia again. And we hope you'll join us. In 2026, and I know that probably sounds really far off, but the work that we are doing now over the next 2 years is really going to be building so that we can meet the moment to take advantage of the opportunity. So we're very happy to hold the Pennsylvania House in the 2024 election by a narrow 1 seat. I will remind you that in 2022, that seat was won by just 63 votes. 63 votes gave us this initial control, and we were able to hold it again in 2024. In the Minnesota Senate, we were excited to hold that majority in 2024 in a special election, and we must hold that if we're going to build for a trifecta in 2026. In the Michigan Senate, Similarly, one seat majority where we need to make sure that we're able to hold that. In Nevada, in the Assembly and the Senate, we feel good about our majorities. However, there is a Republican governor that's very popular. If we're able to pick up an additional seat in both chambers, we'll have veto-proof majorities. Supermajorities will allow us to override the governor. We can go to the next slide. And then this is some of the most exciting opportunities because winning elections are important, flipping chambers are important, but the policy wins that Sarah shared with us that we have seen since flipping some of these chambers are absolutely critical. So throughout 2025, we're going to be monitoring and paying attention to key special elections. As folks may have seen, Democrats have been overperforming the way that the presidential outcome came in 2024 by an average about 8%. So if there are opportunities for us to take advantage of state legislative special elections, absolutely we'll be engaged. In 2026, we just need to pick up one seat in the Minnesota House for us to be able to control that chamber. Due to fair maps, and I saw the chat pop off about the key Wisconsin special or Supreme Court election that I know that so many folks are engaging on, including our State Bridges partners in Wisconsin and some of our teams and affiliates writing postcards, donating, and also phone banking. But those new maps that we just had allowed us to run the playing field in 2024 in the Wisconsin Senate. We picked up 4 seats. As Sarah mentioned, one of those seats was by less than 2,000 votes, which really put us in a good position for us to be able to go pick up 2 seats in the Wisconsin State Senate, winning a majority for the first time in nearly a decade. The Wisconsin Assembly, 5+ seats we need to flip there. We're going to go back for the Michigan House, picking up those 4 seats that unfortunately we lost. And then in Arizona, we did have a setback in 2024. We faced some tough headwinds. We are going to look to pick up 4 seats in the Arizona House and 3 seats in the Senate, which if Governor Katie Hobbs is reelected, would allow us to get that Democratic trifecta. You can go to the next slide. And then there's the blue inroads. These are places where we're going to continue cycle after cycle to make sure that we continue to amass more progressive power. Special elections will help that in 2025. But in 2026, the Pennsylvania Senate is definitely a place where we need to do that. Only half of that chamber is up. And so that's why you see it on the inroads map. We're going to make as many inroads as we possibly can and come back for the majority in the next cycle. Heading to 2026, the Georgia House, which now has more Democrats than they've had in their caucus in decades, is a perfect illustration of how we continue to try to claw as many seats as we possibly can. In the North Carolina House, just in 2024, Dante Pittman winning by 908 votes was the seat that allowed us to break the supermajority and give Governor Stein the veto pen that he absolutely needed. The North Carolina Senate will also be up. We're continuing to look for opportunities there. Go to the next slide. But what I say and what I highlight is if you add up all the seats in those flips, plus our ability to potentially do a 2-cycle in the Pennsylvania State Senate, over the next couple of years, 23 seats across 5 states flipping from Republican control to Democratic control would give 42.5 million Americans a Democratic majority legislature. Unlocking potential for new Democratic trifectas in tandem with electing Democratic governors. This unleashes the power of the state to provide progressive policy and impact people's lives. That looks like higher wages, raising the minimum wage, bold climate action, and worker-first policies that we know are just being rejected and not even possible in the federal trifecta. We can go to the next slide. In case you didn't hear me, that is 42.5 million Americans that would be living under a Democratic majority in their legislatures and would be having a conversation about the voters and the working class Americans that need their government to work for them. Go to the next slide. So again, just reiterating, there are tremendous opportunities abound. A lot of these districts and the way that we think through this work is how do we get compounding impact? That compounding impact looks like not only flipping the legislative chambers that I recently discussed, but also doing that reverse coattails push so that we can engage in communities and help Democrats get elected statewide. As you can see here, there will be several gubernatorial elections up in 2026, just making sure that we're able to capitalize on the opportunities that exist in that in the next coming weeks. So, what does this look like? Historically, we have always looked to Virginia for the odd years and gone all in. However, we are thinking about 2025 and 2026 as a collective effort. And so, while yes, we know that it is crucially important for us to be able to defend our slim and narrow majority in the Virginia House, we know that we can walk and chew gum because Sister District has done it before. As protests against the president in the first administration, we continue to organize in our communities, drawing attention to key state legislative races that we know when we flip those seats will impact people's lives. So, over the next 2 years, the next 7 quarters, we are going to be building that power. We can go to the next slide. And with that, I'll invite Sarah Kermy, our executive director, to come on to here to talk a little bit about where those 2 years fit into a 10-year plan for us to be able to amass the progressive power that we need.
Yeah, so as Sean just mentioned, our electoral strategy here at Sister District is rooted in our 10-year blueprint, which you can see here. And, it started in 2022 and runs until 2032. And I think it's really important to note that this period of time was not chosen accidentally. It was chosen very purposefully because it allows us to continue to build ahead of not only the 2028 presidential, but also ahead of the redistricting process that will take place in the states after the 2030 election, which really makes it all the more critical that we build these Democratic majorities and win in 2025 and 2026. I think Sean is going to go a little deeper into that on the next slide.
And what does that look like? Just quickly, we know that population change is negatively impacting the places that typically have afforded Democrats the opportunity to win the presidential election through the Electoral College. But also thinking about the narrow majority of Republicans that hold the US House, control of the House runs through our state legislatures. As you can see here, all of the targets that I just talked about, of them, 5 of those states have state legislative control. So, of all of our target seats, there are 96 congressional districts, most likely, that will be represented by these 9 states, of which 46 of these congressional districts will be drawn by the state legislatures. And look at the places where we're losing seats. We have seen historically, if Republicans control the pen when we either lose or pick up seats, they are afforded the opportunity to draw those seats in the way that they would like, amassing more power. And so we know that over the next several cycles that we will have you on our side as we do this crucial work to tee us up for not only this year, but through 2032. And with that,
we're going to introduce Susan Farrell, our amazing head of organizing, who's going to talk to you about how you can take that action that you were so interested in taking when you started this call.
Thank you both so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Susan. I'm the head of organizing at Sister District, which means I lead our national volunteer program. It is so exciting to be here with you all tonight, so thank you so much for being here. We just heard all about our political strategy, and what I can see is that we have some really great opportunities on the horizon, but the truth is that we cannot achieve our goals or enact that strategy without your help. So I'm going to talk a bit about how you can take action with Sister District and make sure that the future we all want to see, one where we are living freely and fairly and have elections moving forward, becomes our reality. And I will say that when you volunteer with Sister District, our guarantee to you is that you'll be a difference maker. State legislature races can have such small margins, as Sean mentioned, that the time, energy, and resources that you give can literally make the difference in not just the district you're working in, but really in the entire state. In 2024, we were able to hold the line in state legislatures in so many states that Trump won because of the impact that our volunteer teams made. We're talking about raising an average of 13% of total contributions for our top targeted candidates, making almost 2 million phone calls to voters, equivalent to 62% of our top targeted candidates' total phone calls, and writing thousands upon thousands of postcards and knocking on thousands of doors to voters as well. So this work that we did in 2024 was great, but we all know that it was not enough. And in order to meet the opportunity ahead, doing what we did last time is not going to be enough either. So we need to grow and we need you with us. So if your wheels are already turning and you are ready to step up, you can fill out our volunteer interest form by scanning the QR code on the screen right now, or by filling out the form as it was pasted in the chat. And once you fill out the form, a sister district staff member will follow up with you in the next couple of days about next steps for how to get involved. And once you fill out the form, let us know in the chat what you're signing up for and encourage others to join you. And I really want to take a second to challenge everyone on this call that as you're hearing about the different ways to get involved, I hope you'll push yourself out of your comfort zone and sign up for at least one thing tonight, because the reality is that this work is going to take all of us, but we can do it if we're in it together. So really excited to chat a bit more about what that work actually looks like and how you can be a difference maker. And that starts with our sister district teams. The best way to make an impact right now is by starting your own sister district team. Teams help elect state legislature candidates and support frontline organizations in battleground states by providing essential fundraising and volunteer capacity, whether that's knocking on doors, making phone calls to voters, writing postcards, or hosting fundraisers and other events. Your efforts will directly influence crucial state races with lasting nationwide impacts. And when you start a sister district team, you will be taking the guesswork out of political activism, which can often feel like an endless climb moving target. But the sister district promise is that we do the research on the races and the candidates and the impact for you, so that you can spend your very limited time and energy and resources in the most strategic and impactful way. And in addition to building a movement in your community that's strategic and impactful, it will also be fun. Ask any sister district leader on this call, of which there's so many, so thank you all for joining. Sister district teams really know how to have fun. From dance party fundraisers to swear jars on phone banks, we make fun a part of who we are, and that is what makes it easy to keep going even when this work gets really, really hard. We will also help you take your strengths and run with them. No two sister district teams are the same, and we love that. And we will work with you to emphasize your particular interests, resources, and time to build your team in a way that works for you. And when you start a sister district team, you'll work with sister district staff and leaders regularly to achieve your goals. Our experienced team provides resources, regular check-ins, and hands-on support, while our network of leaders connects through calls. We have so many fun calls through Slack, through events, and in-person gatherings. But the bottom line is, if we want to protect millions more Americans from harmful MAGA policies, we need more sister district teams out in the world doing this work. And we have a goal tonight of starting 10 new sister district teams. With an additional 10 teams, we will be able to expand our work significantly to support at least 15 new candidates. And if you remember from Sean's portion, we have this plan to flip 23 seats. We could support 15 new candidates and flip 23 seats. But we need some more teams to do that. But that could be, those 15 new candidates could be the margin needed to flip a state from red to blue. So I am curious, who here is ready to start their own sister district team? Please let us know in the chat if you are ready to get started and fill out that volunteer interest form. It is amazing to see so many people posting in the chat. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. And we're really excited to get started on our new team journey. So thank you to everyone who stepped up. And if we go to the next slide, if starting your own team doesn't feel right for you, something else we really need folks to do right now is to step up and host house parties to harness the momentum around the anti-Trump movement. Hosting a house party is a fun and accessible way to unite your network, educate your community, and inspire action, whether that's through fundraising, volunteer recruitment, or other engagement. And we at Sister District provide all the materials you need to ensure that your event is a success from start to finish. All you need to do is invite your friends to join you. You can think of it as hosting a few people over for brunch or drinks or a talk with a political twist. So maybe if starting a team didn't feel right to you, maybe hosting a house party, a one-time event, does sound right. And I would love it if folks who are ready to step up and host a sister district house party would post that in the chat and get us really fired up to keep spreading the awareness and importance of state legislatures in our community. And I'm gonna check the chat, see how we're doing. Awesome. Cool, cool. Yeah, and we are posting that form. So if you didn't get the QR code, definitely just check a message from Christian that will have the volunteer form. April, thank you so much for volunteering to host a house party. You are incredible. Yes, Laura, thank you. You are awesome. This is what we need to do. We got to be educating our community, and that starts with everyone here. Amy, thank you. Oh, amazing. Amazing. Heather, Kimberly, you guys are awesome. Awesome. Okay, wonderful. And believe it or not, there's even more options for how to get involved. So if neither of those options, either starting your own team or hosting a house party, really called out to you, I'd encourage you to sign up to start a giving circle. So what is a giving circle? A giving circle is a group of individuals who collectively make an impact by pooling their resources towards one cause or entity or candidate. And at Sister District, again, our goal is to make it easy. We are here to support you every step of the way. We provide guidance on how and where to donate, as well as templates and tools to make your giving circle as impactful as possible. All of the information you would need in order to talk to your network about why you're supporting this candidate or this organization. And the beauty of a giving circle is that it is super simple. All it means is really gathering your friends, your family, anyone in your network, and encouraging them to give, to join you in giving to make a difference. And when I say gathering, it could be an email. Giving circles happen virtually, in person. The options are really, really endless there. So maybe starting a team felt like too much, and maybe hosting in person isn't really your thing, then I would love to see you step up to commit to starting a giving circle. And you guys already know what my next question is going to be. Who here tonight can commit to starting a sister district giving circle? I just want to say big thanks to everyone who's in the chat posting about what they're going to do to get involved. Amazing. Oh, Carrie, thank you so much for joining us. This is awesome. Lydia, thank you so much for volunteering to host a giving circle and a house party. I'm going to let folks continue to post in the chat, but please let us know. Let's get each other fired up about the work ahead. And then the last option I want to talk about is just if we have a sister district team in your area, a great first step after tonight is to join them. Teams are the lifeblood of sister district, and the people on our sister district teams are some of the most wonderful people you will ever meet. I've made lifelong friends working here, and I just truly can't say enough good things about our teams. So one of the most amazing things I've seen being a part of this community is that there really is a place for everyone on their sister district team. So no matter what skill set, what interest, what time commitment, what resources you're bringing to the table, there's a place for you on your sister district team. And if we go to the next slide, I will just share that to join your team, all you have to do is visit sisterdistrict.com/teams. Or again, you guessed it, fill out the volunteer interest form in the chat, and we will get you connected to your team right away. And you'll note on this map, the blue states are where we have teams, and the gray states are future sister district teams coming soon, hopefully, if we're getting folks to sign up to start teams in the chat. But everything I said about teams, you don't need to take it from me. I am really excited to introduce Natalie Burdick, who is the district captain of Sister District San Francisco. Natalie is one of our most veteran leaders at Sister District. Natalie's going to share a bit about her experience as a leader and the impact that her team has had over the years. So Natalie, thank you so much for being here this evening, and the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Susan. And actually, thank you to the entire Sister District Project HQ team for inviting me to this Fight for Our Futures call. I have to say, when Nicole Zambrano, who's our organizing manager, reached out, by the way, she's awesome. When she asked me to get involved, I was actually pretty nervous. I mean, I've never spoken to more than 300 people on a call before, but you know what? There's always a first time for everything, is kind of the way I think about it. So here goes. This is my origin story with Sister District Project. I woke up the morning of November 9th, 2016, and I checked my phone because I didn't actually watch the entire election results the night before, decided to go to bed. But despite Clinton winning 3 million more votes than her opponent, that morning, I learned that a reality TV grifting Nepo baby had been installed as the president. And honestly, it was the first time in my life that I thought, if I'm going to stay in America, because I was debating whether or not to do that, but if I'm going to stay in America, then I need to stand up and fight for her. Now, of course, I had no idea how. So I did some research, and full disclosure, by research, I mean, like, I talked to a friend of a friend, and she was like, hey, you should go online and sign up with some groups. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll do that. So 4 months after November, so February of 2017, I did finally sign up, to get on some newsletters. And at the time, there were brand new groups out. So Indivisible, Swing Left, Sister District Project. And Indivisible was planning to protest, the MAGA efforts to repeal the Affordable Care Act. Swing Left was planning for the 2018 congressional midterms. And Sister District was already supporting an election in Delaware in February. So I was like, what's that about? Anyway, after a month of subscribing to all these lists, I actually got a personal email from someone, a Sister District Project volunteer named Carolyn Nassif. And she was actually inviting a bunch of people in San Francisco who had signed up to come to a quote unquote district captain meeting. And I was like, what's that? And the meeting was going to be hosted at the home of another Sister District volunteer, Teresa Kolish. So anyway, I had no idea what a district captain was. I really didn't know what Sister District was about and why they were focused on Delaware. But you know what? I decided to show up anyway. And when I did, I met with about 30 of my neighbors in San Francisco who kind of had the same questions I did. And that afternoon at Teresa's house, we all got together, we rolled up our sleeves, and we started planning our first ever volunteer kickoff. The goal of the kickoff was to recruit other folks to phone bank, to write postcards, to do fundraisers. So basically, I became an organizer. In other words, I joined a party planning crew. Now, aside from the amazing community and lifelong friends I've made at Sister District Project, what I've learned there has really opened my eyes, especially hearing, what's being talked about tonight, seeing what's going on in the chat. I think a lot of you at the beginning of the poll said you wanted to know what, concrete actions you could take right now, but also which ones would have the most impact, right? Those were like the top two things you said you wanted out of this call. So I understand so much about how we've gotten to this extremely dangerous moment we're now facing, and how so much of it actually started in state legislatures. For instance, I learned that Karl Rove spent a measly $30 million to put gerrymandering on steroids. Compare that to how much Musk had to spend, right? That's chump change. His Red Mat scheme actually made it possible after the 2010 census for Republicans to steal 1,000 state legislative seats. I mean, literally, we went from holding 17 Democratic trifectas in 2009, right before the census, to only 6 in 2017 when Sister District Project started. And by the way, I also learned what a trifecta is because I didn't know what that was either. But basically, it's when the governor's office and both chambers are all controlled by the same party. But you know what? More than losing those state trifectas, Red Map meant that we also lost control in Congress, because guess what? It's state lawmakers that get to draw the lines, not only for their own districts, which seems pretty awful, but also for congressional districts. And that's why we have the Congress we do, because it's been gerrymandered to allow radical people to hold office. But again, back to the current day, what I've also realized, and worse than any of that, is that every single goal in Project 2025, it's already been lab tested and approved in states that have GOP supermajorities. North Carolina in 2010, they were the first to pass an anti-LGBTQ bathroom ban. Arizona, 2010, they were the first to pass the anti-immigrant show me your papers law. Virginia in 2012, one of the first to pass Jim Crow 2.0 voter suppression laws, right? Now, I think there's a saying we all know, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, guess what? What happens in states does not stay in that state, right? And there's literally no better example of this than Mississippi's 2018 abortion ban. I know we like to blame MAGA justices on the Supreme Court, or yam tits for appointing Kavanaugh and Barrett, or McConnell for blocking Garland. But actually, we should blame a single Republican state representative, a woman named Becky Curry, who in a heavily gerrymandered state took a boilerplate law, it had already been pre-written by one of those dark money think tank legal firms, and passed an abortion ban because she knew it would go to the Supreme Court. And that led to the Dobbs decision and the overturning of Roe v. Wade. States matter. And so today, again, it's like deja vu, a jury-determined rapist, a 34-time convicted felon, a traitor who's literally been bought and sold by billionaires like Musk, is back in the White House. And he and his MAGA GOP are trying to roll Project 2025 out nationally to attack our freedoms, our families, and our futures. But you know what? More than ever, it's clear to me that it's in the states where we have democratic trifectas that we can actually stand up and fight back. It's in places like San Francisco, like Chicago, like New York, where we can do more than simply resist. We can leverage our power here to turn more states blue. Because in blue states, we are strongest. Whether they're blue because they're actually blue or because they've been, not gerrymandered. I'm going to ask a question. It's hard because, it's a chat and everyone's muted, but how many people here know that 23 Democratic attorney generals are meeting regularly right now to push back against all of these executive orders and against DOJ's attacks? They're meeting, not monthly, not weekly. They're meeting every single day at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And they started planning for this long before November, right? That's what an effective opposition looks like. It's smart, it's strategic, it's doing the critical work. Now, I just want to be clear. I don't expect anyone on this call to volunteer every day. I, like many of you, I have a day job too, but I know we can make a difference. And second to the friendships that I've formed at Sister District Project, what I've learned is that I have agency and I have power. Because when Sister District Project supported Virginia in 2017, we came within one race and literally one vote of flipping both chambers, which meant in 2018, 800,000 Virginians got healthcare for the first time. That's huge. I was part of that. We were part of that. When we came back to Virginia in 2019, we won that tie race and then ended up flipping the entire state blue, the first time in decades. And what did that mean? That meant we raised the minimum wage from $7.25 an hour to $12. We turned one of the worst Jim Crow legacy states into one of the top for voting rights. We helped pass the only climate action in the entire South. And we kept Virginia the only state in the South that doesn't have a ban on reproductive freedoms. Honestly, as bad as I felt on November 2016, November of 2019, when I was with a bunch of Sister District people at a bar watching the election results come in Virginia, I was on cloud 9. And I would not trade that moment for anything. And just like Virginia, any place that Sister District is involved where we're helping to flip or hold or even make inroads into states, we are making a difference. Colorado, Delaware, like I mentioned, Minnesota, Nevada, Washington. It's real progress and real protections for our freedoms when we work at the state level. So to wrap up my quote unquote origin story, I'd like to end tonight by sharing some advice. And it's a mantra I've kind of been repeating to myself since January 20th of this year. I don't know why that particular date, but maybe there's a reason. And it goes like this: tune out the noise, but don't drop the signal. And the signal is the truth that the majority of Americans want what we on this call all want. We want a government of, by, and for the people, not the billionaires. We can have a government that protects our rights and freedoms. And we can do it when we start with states. So I'm going to invite you all to do what I did in 2017. I'm going to invite you to join Sister District Project as an organizer. In other words, to help keep America free, become a party planner. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Natalie, for your words, for your commitment, for your perseverance, for your inspiration, and for your guidance. It's just so amazing to interact with our volunteers and learn so many different things about the way that we can engage. So what are the next steps? We're going to get to Q&A, but please look for our Virginia endorsements, which should be coming in the next 4 to 5 weeks. Join one of our state bridges programs, where we will talk about the year-round organizing and grassroots work that is happening with our state-based partners. Join your team, and don't forget, we have had now 55 people already sign up through that volunteer intake form. That is a direct conversation. Let's see through our Q&A while folks aren't paying, when we're answering questions, if we can't get that to 65 or 75, that is going to be the way that we're ultimately to do that. So I would love to introduce and bring back my esteemed colleagues. I saw one question that kept popping up. I'll answer that while we spotlight our amazing executive director, Sarah Kermey, and our head of organizing, Susan Farrell. The question about our capacity to push back and fight against all of these vicious and nasty anti-trans attacks that are happening, not only in our federal government. I remember working, and this is where I cut my teeth. I had hair when I was doing LGBTQ activism, I promise. And it actually was in a nonpartisan way, trying to work in our states to afford more rights. As I was trying to figure out what we could pass, I was very clear that Republicans were going to use 0 ounces of political capital to protect the most vulnerable in our community. And we absolutely stand against all of the attacks. And I believe that encourage candidates not to use the type of language that some folks are thinking is the politically expedient way to make social change. I've been a part of it in the marriage movement. Just giving ceding ground to Republicans is not that way. And at Sister District, before we endorse any candidate, we ask that candidates align with our values, and protecting those that are the most vulnerable in our community is a key pillar of that. And so just wanted to answer that question while folks had the opportunity to either fill out the form or to answer, to pose any other questions in the chat. And so the first question that I have is for Sarah Kermey. How does Sister District balance the urgency of elections with the long-term need to build progressive power?
Yeah. So as we talked about, we at Sister District are extremely focused on these key purple races that we know we need to win in order to hold and flip these chambers, including special elections that pop up here and there. We've already had 2 in January in Virginia that were really pivotal, as Sean talked about, to making sure we're holding both of these chambers. So we want to make sure we're holding these really critical seats to make sure that we're flipping these chambers in cycles. And then over the long term, we talked about that 10-year blueprint where we're making sure that it's within this framework of making sure that we're preparing for things like the 2028 presidential election and redistricting, when our state legislators will rewrite the maps, not only for themselves, but for the US House. And then we also have programs like State Bridges, which Sean mentioned, where we're working with in-state partners in these key states who are doing this work on the ground in these key states, this long-term year-round power building, and we're supporting those organizations with our volunteer teams every day when in the down periods when we don't have candidates who we're supporting.
Susan, can you talk a little bit about, I know we talked a lot about dials and building community. Can you talk about how our volunteers living outside of some of these key districts are impacting these races in a very tangible way from where they're located, even on top of fundraising?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the most like beautiful things about the sister district is that strategy of you can be anywhere, you can live in a blue area and still make a big difference in a purple district. And that's what's so wonderful about us being able to pair our sister district teams with a specific candidate. So you really get to know that candidate when you're working with sister district. It's not just like some amorphous Democratic cause. It is, Michael Fagan's, or it is Danica Rome, some of our Virginia alums. And you get to know them really well. You get to meet them on virtual phone banks. Sometimes they'll come out to your fundraisers, either in Zoom or even in person. They've been known to fly across the country because our candidates appreciate that, Sister District is really special and our teams are really special and they want to get to know you too. And I know a lot of us here count our candidates among our friends. And our teams, they impact these races. They literally make the difference, right? We've had races that come down to a tie. We've had races that come down to 63 votes. So when our teams are making phone calls to voters and you find that one voter who didn't know that the election was happening and they now have a plan to go out and vote, that could literally be the difference in that race. And that's the kind of work we do at Sister District. It's impactful, it's targeted, it's laser focused, and it gets the job done for our candidates.
Awesome. Thanks, Susan. I've seen a bunch of questions, Sarah, about some very specific special elections. We could obviously talk about very specific. Can you talk a little bit about what it will look like for Sister District to engage in a special election and how we obviously, unfortunately, do not have the capacity to engage in all of them? Can you talk a little bit about what engagement from Sister District in a special election could look like?
Yes. So one thing to note is that, as we've talked about, we are specifically focused at the state legislative level. So we know there's a lot of different special elections happening that are important to know about and be thinking about and working towards. But we're specifically focused on these state legislative elections. And then within that, as I mentioned, as I was talking about these seats, we are specifically focused on those seats that are what we talk about, their purple seats or flip seats or 50-50 seats. They're the ones that really make the difference in whether we hold the Pennsylvania House or we lose the Pennsylvania House, or we flip the Wisconsin Senate or we don't. And so there are many seats in our key states that are maybe much bluer or much redder. And so that if special elections pop up and the dynamics of that district are such that it's much bluer or much redder, we may not engage in that one because, again, we're very focused on the purple seats that are very flippable and important to hold. So those are some of the critical pieces that we really look for as we're gauging whether or not we're going to engage in a special election.
Awesome. And one more question that I just seen. Can you talk about, I saw some fear about elections and, the keeping our democracy. For those that may be slightly nervous about that, can you talk about the importance of us moving forward and staying on it in terms of the electoral work and giving some folks, obviously the SAVE Act is very, very dangerous. Sister District has already signed onto organizational opposition to the SAVE Act, and it'll be critical for that. But Sarah, could you talk a little bit about how our work over the next couple of years can reinforce democracy?
Yes, absolutely. So as Sean mentioned, we've already signed on to oppose the SAVE Act, and that is obviously very important. And I understand why there's a lot of fear right now on a lot of levels. I think one thing that's really important to note is these states also in the policies every day that they are passing or failing to pass impact our ability to vote at the state level. And so it's really critical that we elect state legislatures that believe in the right to vote and free and fair elections, and making sure that we have, that we're not passing gerrymandered maps. And those are the kind of candidates that we're supporting at Sister District, folks who, again, believe in that freedom to vote, in the sanctity of the ballot box. And those are issues that they're deciding every single day. In fact, just in New Hampshire, they had some elections, and we saw that because they're under Republican trifecta, it's getting harder harder to vote in New Hampshire, as opposed to I'm sitting here in Michigan, and it's gotten easier to vote under the Democratic trifecta that we had. We obviously don't have it anymore, but much easier to vote. And those things make a huge difference, not only for the state level, but also for the national level over time.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you so much, Susan. If we could just remove the spotlight so that everybody can see everybody. I just want to be in community. I think that it's absolutely amazing that on a Tuesday night, there are 300 people throughout the country that are committing to being a part of transformational change by taking actions, by walking and chewing gum, by making sure that they're talking to their friends, their family, and anybody that asks about how to take action. We truly believe that all action is necessary, and we hope that you will join us. I know that we were at 53. We're now at 67 responses on the volunteer intake form. I know that we weren't able to get to all of the questions that you all popped in the chat. Luckily, we're recording this, so we'll come back to that chat and hope to circle up with you. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a part of our democracy, and thank you for being an inspiration when things do look dark, because it is so important for us to come together, to look each other in the eyes and realize we aren't alone, and that we will to push back, and we can. So thank you all so much for being here tonight, and we look forward to deepening our relationship with all of you. So thank you so much. There's a lot of opportunity ahead, and we will see you in a Zoom or an organizing or a fundraiser. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, everybody.